Hello Yulo, Catchy Edition here, and I was just thinking of playing some GameCube games on my Nintendo Switch. Oh yeah, I forgot. GameCube games are a privilege, not a right. Nintendo has had a rough time making older games more accessible on their newer consoles. And while you may be asking, but Cat, Nintendo offers NES, SNES, Game Boy, GBA, and N64 games. That's a lot! And to that I say, you're being tricked. This backwards compatibility is on par, or even worse than what we had on the Wii. The Wii released back in 2006, and during its build-up to release in 2005 there was a conference held in which Iwata busts onto stage, whips out a Wii from his jacket pocket, and announces it will be able to play GameCube, N64, SNES, and NES on launch. Now let's look at the current day Nintendo. Yeah. The Switch launched on March 2017. The first batch of Nintendo Switch Online games came out in September 2018. Over a year later, and was only NES games, from which there were some large omissions such as Punch-Out, Metroid, Kirby, and Kid Icarus. But that's fair after all. You know, emulating a system that you made and have been emulating for the past 2 generations of consoles is hard. I understand. So with buried long gaps in between, Nintendo will continue to port NES games until 2023, with the latest release, Xevious. As for Super Nintendo games, it would take even longer for them to come out, only releasing in September 2019, a whole year after NES, and 2 years after the console would launch. If you can't see my problem with Nintendo yet, I'll continue. In 2021, they finally managed to get N64 games working. And yes, there are 20 asterisks next to the word working. The ports were choppy and technically inferior versions of the games. By 2023, they magically managed to get Game Boy and GBA games working. And I say somehow, because apparently, to get Game Boy games working takes over 6 years on any given piece of hardware. And you know, by this metric, I can say that we will get GameCube games on Switch by the time the rapture happens. A lot of these problems are likely to stem from the fact that NOS is streaming the games, while something like the Virtual Console was simply emulating it. Which was also an unnecessary change, since Nintendo could have just made a Virtual Console for the Switch. They could have had free games as a bonus for the Nintendo Switch Online, but no. You only get one way to play Donkey Kong Jr. Math, goddammit, and you better be happy. Well, that's that. Nintendo sucks at releasing stuff. What are you gonna do? But wait, maybe, if I'm able to find a pattern in these re-release influxes, maybe I'll be able to finally get Nintendo to release a recently priced version of Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Alright, I shall embark into Nintendo history to find the cause of all this, and maybe along the way I find where I left my favorite mug. I haven't been able to find it for weeks. Going back to the granddad of old shipping thrown at customers again, we have the birth of the Virtual Console, an online service that started on the Wii, proceeded to the Wii U and 3DS generation. It would allow users to buy old retro crap, and alongside the Wii's backwards compatibility, it meant you could play every generation of Nintendo games up to this point in one console. Some of the first games on this console were the quintessential NES games that anyone had to play. Games such as Mario Bros, Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda, Urban Champion, Super Mario Bros, Xevious, and after a year it got all the must-play games from Nintendo, and was still supported afterwards by third parties. Similar story with SNES and N64. We got Super Mario 64 on launch, and we were fed more games over 2007 and into 2011. But that's not all, because the Virtual Console also supported other consoles, with TurboGrafx 16 and TurboGrafx CD on launch, Sega Genesis on launch, Neo Genesis and Master System coming the year following, and arriving late to the party, we got the Commodore 64 games. As consoles progressed, we also saw more new consoles added to the lineup, such as DS games on both 3DS and Wii U, which is a huge burst to these consoles' downfalls. If the Wii's launch lineup doesn't explain why I hate what Nintendo's been doing with Nintendo Switch Online, my hatred will be just as much as a mystery to you as whether or not Wario has nipples. The Wii U launched its own Virtual Console with some of its first games being Punch-Out, Kirby's Adventure, Psych-Like, Mega Man, Pac-Man, Xevious, and weirdly enough, they released Mario Bros. 2 months ahead of the original Super Mario Bros. And really enough, they released Super Mario Bros. 2 months ahead of the original, while on 3DS, the very first game to come to it was the original Super Mario Bros. And I don't know why, but this list feels empty for some reason. Yeah, but I'm probably just imagining things. So instead, let's shift our focus towards the 3D Classics line. a game series which was focused on recreating NES games to work with stereoscopic 3D. So of course Nintendo went ahead and created some games. Excitebike, Kid Icarus, Kirby's Adventure, Urban Champion were all the first party games in the series, and third parties only had 2 games, Twin Bee and Xevious? Wait a second, it all makes sense now. The link between Nintendo's re-release curse across all these consoles was right in front of my face this whole time. Why would Nintendo keep insisting for a third-party Namco game that originated as an arcade game to be part of their lineup each and every time they made an NES game available on their new consoles? I mean, even with the Nintendo Switch, it's to this day the latest new NES game on Switch, and who knows, it might even be the last. This must be a sign of the X curse. Hell, even way back when Nintendo remade NES games for the Game Boy Advance, they included Xevious. So now that I've tracked down the curse, all I have to do is play the cursed game and finally figure out why Nintendo has been cursed. Man, this bucket list is getting absolutely destroyed. Xevious is a vertical scrolling shooter arcade game made and published by Namco in 1982, in which the player controls a ship which shoots 2 types of shots, one that hits aerial enemies and another that hits grounded enemies. And yes, I know you've been asking, thankfully there is a plot to this game, so let's hope it can tell us why Satan was born. Controlling the Salbalush starship, the player attacks Xevious forces before they destroy all of mankind. So Xevious is evil. I fucking knew it! All we have to do now is shoot, get a high score, and then realizing buying the whole arcade cabinet was probably a mistake. So, instead of making a large mistake, let's make a smaller mistake and play the Famicom version. And that was just a slightly downgraded version of the arcade game! Let's see if the power of America can fix this. Well, nothing is changing. Let's talk about the inspiration for Xevious. Xevious was originally going to be a center and theme around the Vietnam War, and was imagined as a story-based game to make The Last of Us cry unga before it was even conceived. They started adding more characters that were inspired by Star Wars, Alien, and Battlestar Galactica. In Japan, this was a huge success, and it was the highest grossing game Namco had made, surpassing even Space Invaders. For the time, people thought it was a revolutionary game, and you know what? Looking back at it, it's pretty fun. But sadly, here in America, the sales and popularity didn't reach the same level as in Japan, which probably explains why the game is so barely talked about over here. Oh hey, there's my favorite mug. Looking at the history regarding Xevious, it seems to me the reason the curse was the popularity of it in Japan. And you know, considering that Nintendo is a Japanese company, they probably see it as a massive part of their gaming history they want to preserve and allow to live on to future generations. Which just makes no sense! Nintendo has hundreds of dormant franchises with some of the most ingenious concepts ever put to gaming, and they're being forgotten and left behind to time, all due to their unwillingness to sell their games on their current console. The reason fans are so outraged at a new F-Zero, new Punch-Out, new Wario World, new Golden Sun, new Kid Icarus, it's because they refuse to allow people to play their games, and instead they're releasing new ways to play Xevious. That just amplifies the narrow-mindedness that we see from Nintendo. Only their old games will sell, and that's how they keep thinking. They always go to like the NES or SNES for nostalgia. You'll never see them going, guys, look, it's Mario Sunshine, or guys, look, it's a new Tuber Robo, because they don't care about those franchises, and they know that they won't make as much money. You can't just ask them to make a new Kasu Robot game because they don't care enough about that series and don't trust its profitability. Well, seems like the curse won't go away, so I'll have to find out alternative ways to buying Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Hello, Editing Cat here. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, and help me beat the algorithm. Because if all goes well, maybe I'll be able to make more and more people will be able to see it. So, thank you very much. Have a good day.